Okay, let's review the newly released Strange New Worlds episode. We start with the previously section, reminding us once again that Noonien Singh had a bad experience with the Gorn. This is only the umpteenth time that we've been told this fact, so I wonder what it means when it appears in the prologue. So we open to a crew member being promoted to lieutenant. I don't remember this guy from before, so I hope he's not just here to kill off. Anyway, this week, there's a ship down and Captain Pike decides to take a small team into an area outside of communications range that hopefully doesn't have a hostile force of any kind that would just love to get their hands on several head personnel in a major starship of the Federation. The crew investigates the downed ship and finds two life signs, one human and the other unknown. Hopefully, this wouldn't be a hostile alien since we already have a starship captain here, a very important and famous starship captain as suggested in Discovery, but we'll see. Oh, no. The human's just protecting a human girl. So my worries were for naught. The only problem is the alien guy starts breathing heavily. I assume it is because he's fatigued or something, or maybe he's having a panic attack, and not harboring an alien symbiote in him like another famous sci-fi franchise that's been run into the ground. That would be too predictable. I do wonder, though, if Ridley Scott exists in the Star Trek universe. Never mind, we are going to go with the chest burster. And here's where the episode falls apart. It wasn't terrible until now, just a little bit boring. But as Captain Picard reminds us, all good things must end. I'm glad no one thought of quarantining a guy that was obviously sick with something, but they just didn't have a read on it yet. I just lived through a pandemic, so I would have taken extra precautions here. Besides, these two medical personnel decide that his increased distress wouldn't warrant more concern, so Nurse Chapel just walks off. Okay. Well, either way, we continue with the sci-fi original Aliens with a Z, as the crew realizes that they are not alone.
This is getting out of hand. Now there are two of them.
They act somewhat smartly, at least they communicate with each other and try to form a plan. Of course, we lose the guy that was literally a red shirt at the beginning of the episode. He should have seen that escaping one cliché only led him to another. But to be fair, the Gornlets decide to pick off the plumpest of the herds. They probably didn't even know the guy was only in this episode. Spock is distressed, because of course he is. Noonien Singh is running around telling everyone that the Gornlets are smart and fast, and she's just playing up the threat. I wonder why, if she was so knowledgeable of Gorn reproduction, she didn't think that the alien and girl might be carriers. Never mind, she's actually useful though, because she informs us that the Gorn, will actually kill each other for dominance. She tries to make this seem like a bad thing because she says only the smartest and the strongest will be left, and this implies that it would then steamroll the crew. But what I'm hearing here are fewer enemies that are still babies, and while feral, don't have any guns, don't have control of environmental systems, and don't have teamwork. In fact, the crew uses the environmental controls to move the Gorn through the ship because the kids don't like the cold. But if this is the case, I feel like you can just lock yourself in a room and freeze the ship. I would think that this would drive the grubs off and leave you guys safe. Either way, the crew eventually leads the Gorn into the cargo bay where it is trying to eat Noonien Singh, and they use her as bait to eventually hit the grub with some freeze juice. It dies and she breaks it and screams. The Andorian guy, who is actually pretty cool, he was spit on, which turns out to be how Gorn reproduce. Now he has to jump off the ship into the freezing cold to kill the spawn inside of him. The day is saved. Everyone returns to the ship to have a memorial to the lost crew members from this episode. Spock then walks out and punches a wall. I didn't mention it earlier, but he did unleash his rage to fight the Gorn and shoot into a wall. If I still cared, I'd be annoyed that everyone in the last 13 years of Abrams' Kurtzman Trek has been trying to push this emotional part of Spock. The character has lived for over 40 years in our consciousness, with very few outbursts, many of which were only because of the external influences of other aliens or drugs. But every new bit of media has to make him a big man-child who constantly cries or punches holes in walls. It doesn't bother me, though. Nothing in this show gels with the original series, so why would I care if Paramount wants to parody and basically pull down its franchises rather than continue them? So in the end, basic rating, 5 out of 5 Alex Kurtzmans. I'll leave it to you to figure out what that means.